Hello, fifth grade. Today we're going to do the first half of our chapter 8 review. So you need to tear out pages 379 all the way through 384, technically the last 3 pages of the chapter review. I'm going to have your graph paper out. We're going to start by labeling our graph paper, and then we'll start with number 1. So on our graph paper, we always put name on our paper. First thing, you put your first and last name, the date, whatever Thursday is. This is math, and this is chapter 8 review. And we labeled the assignment as workbook page 379 to 384. All right, so here's part 1. Start with number 1. The builder has, and before I forget, similar to the mid-chapter checkpoint, if you remember, we wrote a few things out. So I'm going to start with, I like to write the notes on the top to remind myself when I'm doing my problems. I have my dividend. I have my divisor. And the dividend is the number of items a person has. And this is divided by the item needs to be shared or cut or split into pieces or shared amongst people. All right, so, and also know that when we do this, this is the numerator and our denominator. So know that every division problem is also a fraction. So we can set up a division problem with our dividend and our divisor, or we can turn it into a fraction. All right. So number 1, a builder has an 8-acre plot of land and wants to divide it into quarters or into 1/4 of an acre home sites. How many 1/4 acre home sites are there? So the person has 8 acres and they want to split it into 1/4 acre pieces. So if you remember from our recent lessons this week, whenever we have the fraction as the divisor, it's going to be turned into multiplying whole numbers. So we can go through the steps of putting the whole number over 1. And then we multiply by the reciprocal of the divisor, right? This is the divisor. We multiply by the reciprocal of the divisor, which I did not do. And we get 32 over 1, or 32. So we have 32 acre, 32 1/4 acre lots. Number 2, select true or false. So for each of these, we can solve them out, and we also can remember that rule from Thursday or from Monday and Tuesday's lessons this week, that when the divisor is a fraction, it's going to be turned into multiplying whole numbers. And when the divisor is a whole number, it's going to be turned into multiplying fractions. So right now, if you just follow those rules, I know that that's false, that's true, that's false, that's true, and that's false. But that is not how we do math. We like to show our work. So we're going to show our work. Number 2, A. is 3 divided by a quarter equals 3 over 1 divided by a fourth. The reciprocal, you multiply by the reciprocal of the divisor, and you get 12 over 1, which equals 12. So it is not 1/12, so this is false. To be, or not to be, that is the question. 7 divided by a half equals 7 over 1, divided by a half equals 7 over 1, multiplied by the reciprocal of the remainder, and that equals 14, which is true. 2C. Sorry, that was a little blurry. We have 1/5 divided by 4. So remember, when the divisor is a whole number, you're going to end up being multiplying by fractions. Equals 1/5 divided by 4 over 1. Put the whole number over 1. And then we multiply by the reciprocal of the divisor, and we get 1/20. And that is false. 2D, we get a half divided by 5. So when the divisor is the same thing, when the divisor is a whole number, we're going to end up multiplying fractions. It's the same thing I did in the last one. I forgot to flip the reciprocal. And that's 1/10, so that's true. And 2E is 1/7 divided by 3 equals 1/7 divided by 3 over 1. 1/3 equals 1 over 21. And this one is false. All right, so number 3. £12 of beans are distributed equally into 8 bags to give out at the food bank. How many pounds of beans are in each bag? So for this problem, what do we have? We have 12 pounds of beans, and we want to split it up into 8 equal bags. So in this case, I can put my information as a fraction. And I can reduce. I'm first going to divide by a GCF of 4. And if I divide my numerator and denominator by 4, I get 3 over 2. And then I can use mental math to know that 2 goes into 3 one time. And 3 minus 2 is 1. So it equals 1 1/2. For those of you who struggle a little bit with the mental math, 2 goes into 3 one time. The difference is 1, and that's how 1 1/2 is made from an improper fraction. So that is 1 1/2 pounds of beans per bag. Number 4. Gabriel made 4 small meatloaves. He cut each meatloaf into fourths. How many fourth pieces of meatloaf does Gabriel have? Draw lines on your model to show. All right, we'll do the lines after. So what do we have? We have 4 meatloaves, and we want to cut them into quarters. So we have 4 over 1 divided by a fourth equals 4 over 1 times 4 over 1, which equals 16 over 1. Any number over 1 is a whole number. So we have 16 quarter pieces of meatloaf, or quarter size is I think what the problem says. All right, so we need to take our 4 meatloaves and we're going to cut them into quarters. So 1, 2, 3. And actually, I think isn't it easier to just do a half and then do the halves like that? And we get 16. All right, number 5. 5 friends shared 3 bags of trail mix equally. What fraction of a bag does each friend get? So, what do we have? We have 3 bags of trail mix, and they're split amongst 5 people. So we set this up as a fraction. So we have 3 over 5. I can't reduce that. So each friend gets 3/5 of the trail mix bag. And remember, you can't split up people. So you can't cut up, we're not cutting up 5 people amongst 3 bags. Sounds like a horror movie. All right, so keep that in mind. Then what do you have and what is it being split between? Okay. I didn't show you that problem. I was reading the problem. I didn't show it to you. I'm sorry. So that what you have 3 bags of trail mix and you're splitting it amongst 5 people. So remember from what we wrote earlier, what you have is your dividend, and your dividend is your numerator, and what you're splitting it up into is your denominator. And luckily for number 5, we couldn't simplify it, so that's just how the problem's laid out. Next page. No? Scroll down? No. There we go. Okay. Landon and Colin bought half pound of strawberries. They are sharing the strawberries equally. Each person will receive blank pound of strawberries. Okay, so number 6. Landon and Colin bought half. So what do we have? We have half a pound of strawberries, and we want to split it amongst 2 people. So we have half a pound divided by 2 over 1. We multiply by the reciprocal of the divisor, and we get a 1/4 pound. So they each get a 1/4 pound of the strawberries. Number 7, choose or create a problem that represents. So number 7 is 4 divided by 1/3. So remember, we don't necessarily need to, they tell you the answer at the end. You just need to make a problem. So in this case, you have to remember 4. They has 4 items of something, and it's being split into thirds or cut into third pieces. All right, so if we look at the word problem, Billy bought 4 pounds of cheese. He made grilled cheese sandwiches and used 1/3 pound of cheese in each sandwich. How many sandwiches did he make? Well, we have to know that 4 divided by 1/3 multiplied by the reciprocal of the divisor is going to give you 12 over 1, or 12. So you have to know that having 4 items of something needs to be your dividend, and your divisor is 1/3. Otherwise, if it was the opposite, you would end up getting a 12th, and that doesn't make sense. A 12th sandwich doesn't make sense in that problem. All right, so our turtle, famous tortoise problem, number 8. So number 8, a giant tortoise can walk about 1 meter per second on land. A cooter turtle can walk about 0.5 meter per second on land. So we're going to be comparing our turtles here. How long would it take a giant tortoise to travel 5 meters? Show your work. So you have 5 meters, and we're splitting up the meters into the giant tortoise. 1/10. So we have 5 meters for the giant tortoise, and we want to split it up between 1/10. And that would be 50 So it would be, how long would it take? It would take 50 seconds to travel that distance. And you have to show your work. Okay, so I'm not going to do it on the, I'm just going to do it on my graph paper, and then you can just do it on your workbook page. However you're following along. I just want to check the explanation to make sure I direct you in the right way. So number 8, our turtle has 5 meters, and we're splitting up the 5 meters to 1/10 meters per second, if I'm not mistaken. That's the rate. And this is a physics question or formula, by the way. Distance divided by rate will give you time. You eventually will memorize those formulas as you get older and more advanced in your math careers. You could say your 5th grade teachers introduced it to you. So we have 5/1 divided by 1/10. We multiply by the reciprocal of the divisor, and we get 50. So what does 50 mean? So 50 means, and all of this would go in the box because it says show your work. It would take the giant tortoise (50 seconds) to travel 5 meters. Now that's A. B, ask how much longer would it take a giant tortoise than a cooter turtle to travel 10 meters on land? Find your answer. So for B, I'll explain how you found your answer. Lovely. Well, first I'm just going to solve it. I have my tortoise, my GT, and my CT, right? So we have our distance is 10 meters for both. The giant tortoise goes 1/10 meter per second, whereas the turtle, if we look on the information in the problem, it says it goes 0.5 meter per second. So its rate is 0.5 meter per second. So again, 10/1 divided by 1/10, multiply by the reciprocal of the divisor, and we get 100. So it would take 100 seconds. Whereas our other turtle, when you have a fraction and you multiply by the reciprocal, that becomes a whole number. So this would be 20. Multiply by the reciprocal, and we get 20/1, or 20 seconds. So how much longer does it take the tortoise? Well, 100 minus 20 equals 80. So it takes the more seconds to travel 10 meters. So that's the answer to the question, right? But we also need to explain how we found our answer. So this is the answer to the problem, but now we need to explain the steps. So first, we found All right. So here is part B. Explain how you found your answer. It takes the giant tortoise 80 more seconds to travel 10 meters. First, you find the time it takes the giant tortoise to travel 10 meters. You show your work. Then find the time it takes the cooter turtle to travel 10 meters. 10 divided by half is 20 seconds. And then last, you subtract to compare. All right. Number 8. Number 9. Oh, that was the end of that page. All right, Camila. Camila has half a pound, so we have half a pound of raisins that she'll divide evenly into 5 bags. So you have something and you're splitting it up into different items. Show the diagram of the fraction part of what will be in each bag. So we have half a pound of raisins and we're dividing it into 5 bags. So we have half divided by 5 over 1 equals a half a pound bag times 1/5, which equals a tenth of a pound of raisins in each bag. Now, what do you color in? Well, it's 1/10. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I have 10 boxes, so I'm going to be coloring in 1/10 of that. 1/10. That's my answer. All right, number 10. There are 20 problems, so we are doing up to number 10 for today. All right, number 10. Mrs. Green wrote the following problem on the whiteboard. Lisa and Frank, so 2 people, shared a 1/3 pound of cherries equally. So what do we have? We have a 1/3 pound of cherries, and we divided it equally between 2 people. What fraction part of pound of cherries did each person receive? Okay, before I read anything else, I need to find the answer myself because they're going to be asking me all these questions, and they're going to say a bunch of stuff, and it's going to confuse me. I need to find the answer on my own. So we have a 1/3 pound of cherries. What do we have? Divided it by what we're splitting it up by. 2 over 1. We multiply by the reciprocal of the divisor, and I get a 6, which means that Lisa and Frank each get a 6 pound of cherries. Okay, now I know the correct answer. Now I can read the problem and see how they want us to prove if that's right or wrong. Now, Molly wrote the following equation. 2 divided by 1/3 equals a number. Shame, 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 Molly. You're not right. Do you agree with Molly's equation? Support your answer with information from the problem. I'm sorry, Molly. You're wrong. So here's part A's explanation. No, Molly is wrong. Mr. Green didn't teach it very well. Mrs. Green didn't teach it very well to her if Molly still doesn't understand. Has divided by splitting it by people. All right, no, I disagree. Lisa and Frank are sharing 1/3 pound of cherries. there's your part A. Ooh, I don't have room to write B. Not space. All right, well, Noah drew this diagram to solve the problem. Can Noah use this diagram to find the fractional part of a pound of cherries that each person received? Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is 6, and this is 1/6. And so if we have a third, and I took a third and I cut it in half, that would be a 6. Actually, that's correct. Yes, this can work. I do not have room to write it on my paper, so I'm going to write it on the workbook page. Actually, I'll write it on another piece of paper, and that makes more sense. So that's A. And here is 10B. So 10B. Real quick, those are thirds. They have a third pound. If I split that third in half, and I split that third in half, and I split that third in half, I get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They get a 6 of the bag. That is correct. So, yes, I agree. Noah did well. Noah, what did Noah do? Noah divided the circle into 3 equal parts. Then he divided shaded half of 1/3 of the circle. The diagram represents the correct expression All right. That's the explanation to Noah's diagram. He did well. All right, that is the end for part 1 of our chapter review. We will finish tomorrow and do the second half.